Hey, I'm Blake with NuCanoe, and today we're going to give you an update on the pivot drive. For those of you who saw this at Paddle Sport Retail or ICAST this summer, we're excited to give you an update and let you know where things stand. For those of you who are learning about it for the first time, we're really excited to show you what the pivot drive is all about. So today we're going to talk about what really sets the pivot drive apart, what makes it unique. And we're also going to give you just a bow to stern walkthrough of the pivot drive system so you really understand everything that's going on. But first, we're just going to give you a brief update, the bottom line up front on where we're at with the pivot drive. So first off, the pivot drive is awesome. It's smooth, it's quiet, it's reliable, it's high performance, it's efficient. It just feels really nice and works really well. And if you're a NuCanoe owner that's anxious to have pedal power on your NuCanoe, you are going to really love the pivot drive. If you're not a NuCanoe owner yet, but looking for a kayak that can be pedaled very well, but also has the ability to be paddled or used with a motor, this is going to be an awesome system for you. So we're really pleased with where it's at. On the development side, we're pretty much done with product development. We've been through 2, 3, 4, 5 iterations and versions of different parts and components to really dial it in. Since we showed it off this past summer, we've redesigned the whole pedal tower to make it shorter and more efficient, and improve the kind of the ratio between where you're sitting and where the pedals are. We've also designed a new base for the Frontier 12 and the F10. We've reworked the components of the prop shaft that control the steering in the Retract and just make that really easy to use, and dialed in the steering system further. So we're really happy with how things have come along. Next up, we're going to take these prototypes that you see behind me, and we're going to get them out to the field for real testing with our team members out in the coast in Florida, some of the big tournament fishing lakes in the south, and really just put it through the paces in a variety of conditions and uses to validate the design that we have and to make sure that when we ship this, it's going to be awesome and you're going to love it. Now, with the time for testing and with the lead time for when we do hit go to when we're able to ship this, we're looking at a mid to late 2019 ship date for the pivot drive. Now, I know this is behind our original target of June 2019, and we really apologize for not hitting that for those of you that have been anxious for it. But in the end, we really know that taking this extra step to get these out there for additional real-world testing, to put them through the paces and identify if there's anything in the system that doesn't work right, or if there's any way we can improve the performance, is going to be worth it in the end. And that will ensure that when you receive your pivot drive, it's a system that will exceed your expectations in terms of quality, reliability, and performance. Going forward, we'll keep you in the loop on progress. We'll be able to post some photos, videos, reviews of the pivot drive as it's being used around the country, so you can really get a better understanding for how it works and how it performs. We'll keep you posted if there's opportunities to demo the pivot drive with team members or with dealers. And we'll also just keep you up to date on product development so that you know where we're at with it, and then we'll fine-tune that release date as we get further down the road and are able to keep you informed on when this is going to be available. All right, that out of the way, now let's talk about the pivot drive and what really sets it apart and makes it unique. First, the pivot drive is completely an accessory. It'll plug into any existing Flint, F10, Frontier 12, or Pursuit that's on the market. The kayak hulls, the models themselves, were not redesigned to accommodate the pedal system, so this is simply an accessory that can be added on to existing boats or added on to your NuCanoe at any point in the future. Second, this is a pedaling system that's designed for a paddling kayak. So every other pedal-driven kayak out there, the hull was specifically designed to be used with pedals. Now, that's great when you're pedaling, but it really limits you when you're paddling. So with the pivot drive and a NuCanoe, you can have a kayak that paddles really well, that's great to use with or without pedals, or even use with a motor. Third, it's very smooth and quiet. With the belt-driven system in the pedal tower and the prop shaft and the cable that runs between it, there's no gears, there's no grinding, there's no that mechanical feel when you're pedaling. It's very smooth, it's very quiet. As you're going through the water, you're not going to hear the pivot drive. You're just going to hear the sound of that bow cutting through the water, of the prop turning in the water. And fourth, and this is very important, with the pivot drive, you have the prop mounted off the transom of the kayak. So the prop is attached to the prop shaft, which also serves as the rudder. So when you want to turn, you have the prop shaft that's serving as the rudder, plus the prop itself that's turning to propel you in the direction you want to go. So with every other pedal kayak system, the pedals only move you forward, and then the rudder will control your direction. But with this, the rudder and the prop shaft turn, making it incredibly maneuverable, incredibly responsive, and really ideal for both maintaining a position and for fine-tuning your position when you're out on the water. All right, now let's jump over to the Flint and Frontier 12 behind me and really give you a close-up look and a detailed walkthrough of the pivot drive. The pivot drive consists of 5 main components. You have the pedal tower, the flex drive cable, the prop shaft, the steering system, and the retract cord. The first component is the pedal tower, and this is really crucial because this is a part that you're going to be interacting with. This is where you're going to put your feet on the pedals and power your kayak. And it's a very nice design in here. It's a very fluid system. You have the upper gear, the lower gear, a rubber belt between them, so there's no metal on metal contact, no gears grinding. You have high quality ceramic bearings, so it's very fluid, very little resistance as you're pedaling. The prop tower itself, as I mentioned earlier, has been shortened from prior iterations, so it's a lower access point, and that just feels nicer when the pedals are lower relative to your seating position. It's also more efficient and more compact and lighter because there's not as much material there. So working our way down, then you get to the pivot base. And this is awesome because it allows you to both adjust the height and the position of the pedals relative to the seat, and also get the pedals entirely out of the way when you get to a spot you want to stay and fish. If you want more deck space for standing or just to have that open, just rotate the pedals all the way forward and you've created a lot more room for yourself. Finally, the base on the bottom that mounts to the kayak is a composite base designed specific for each model, and we'll just mount in the track. So to get that in and out, just like the seat, you got the knobs, loosen the knobs, lift it out, away you go. Very simple system. Now where the pedal tower connects to the flex drive, there's a little collar on there that's, again, real easy to use, so if you did need to disconnect the flex drive from the tower, that's very simple to do. The flex drive cable transfers that power of you pedaling to the prop to propel your kayak. The flex drive has a Teflon liner around it, Teflon sleeve, so it's very little resistance inside that cable, and then the outer housing to protect it and to just make it real smooth and efficient. There's an aluminum tube coming right out of the tower to really define that bend angle so that stays the same and doesn't become an issue. And as I mentioned before, if you need to disconnect it from either the tower or the prop shaft with the components that are there, that's real easy to do. Flex drive cable leads into the prop shaft, and this is how we get moving through the water. The flex drive will turn a gear at the top, which turns this belt, turns a lower gear, which is connected to the prop to push you forward or take you back. There's a different length on the prop shaft for the Frontier models as the Pursuit and Flint, so that's another thing that's different between the models on this system. But a couple of key features on the prop shaft. One, it has a locking mechanism, so that if you come across something in the water unexpectedly, the prop shaft will kick up. Simple as that. No damage, no hassles, no nothing. It just kicks up and then will easily reset when you go again. Second, it can be used in reverse. So with that lock, it has enough tension on it that you can pedal in reverse effectively and it'll work just great. Then this also serves for steering, as we discussed, that the prop shaft is the rudder as well. So now let's get into the steering system. So the steering handle is up by the seat and is easy to control. On 2019 models, there's inserts on the gunnel for installing that steering handle. On prior models, there'll be just a retrofit kit to get those in there for you. But real simple steering handle, forward and back, to control the steering. The steering is mounted on this bracket in the back and mounted on the bracket in the front, so everything is essentially a fixed position, so there's no setup, no guesswork on where to install anything. And then the steering cable connects up to the ball joint up here and controls the steering. You get really good throw in each direction, so you have a real tight turning radius. In fact, when out on the water, you can just about keep that bow in the same spot and have the transom end just making circles. So real tight turning radius, really good control. Then we have the Retract System as well. And that is a little cord that is fed through the components here and down inside the prop shaft to that locking pin. So when you're seated and you want to retract, you just pull on that cord and the prop shaft comes up. Let it go down and it locks again. And a key thing here, when the prop shaft does come up, the steering components stay in place. So it's not affecting your steering components, your steering cables, when you're retracting it. That stays in place, so those two things work independently. And that just really improves the reliability and just makes it a more robust system. So all this whole assembly here is mounted on this transom bracket. Transom bracket specific for each model, and it just drops on the transom. There's a bolt with a knob that go through to fasten it, and that's how easy it is to install everything here on the transom of the Kayak. So to cover installation and kind of setup and takedown, it's really all you have to do. This can, you remove this, that'll all lift out, undo the knobs on the steering handle, remove the knobs on the base for the pedal tower, and everything will just lift out. You can also have the option of removing the screw here with these thumb screws just to take the prop shaft off and leave the transom bracket with the steering system on the Kayak, and that's a great way to do it if you're just going to be transporting you know, to another spot. You want to leave everything as set up as possible to make that setup and takedown really simple. So you got a couple options there. Bottom line, to put it on or take it off is just a matter of minutes. It's really simple. So that's an overview of the pivot drive. We're really excited to get these out on the water for real-world testing, to share more content with you from the water. You know, show these being used out in the salt water, in lakes and rivers. So you really get an idea of how it performs and how it works. Now that you understand the system, you want to see what it's like to actually use it. So we'll have that coming soon. We'll keep you posted, and we're really excited to get the pivot drive out on the market so you can enjoy pedal power on your NuCanoe kayaks.